Well, hey, everyone, this is Heidi St. John. Welcome to the Off the Bench podcast. This is the time of year when parents and young adults start thinking about what they're going to be doing in the fall, whether that's going to college for the first time or trying to settle into their new lives as a young adult. A lot of times students stumble into the next season of their lives, and parents, let's be honest, we're kind of stumbling too. Today's guest is going to help me. We're going to talk about this a little bit and discuss some of the common academic challenges that students face when they start college for the very first time. We're going to talk about tips for college students and their families who are preparing for college, how to know where to find campus resources, how we can help students manage their time effectively in between classes, and finally, we're going to give some advice to students who are heading off to college for the very first time who might struggle with feelings of being homesick or overwhelmed in the first semester at college. This is going to be a great conversation, continuing in my series on education. I'm glad you guys have joined me. My guest today is Kim Ahlgrim. She is the Director of The Cove, which is an Academic Enrichment Center at Cedarville University, and she's the founder of Seaside Higher Education Consulting. If you've got a young person heading off to college, this episode is for you. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. So, Kim, welcome to the podcast. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I've been really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it too, because education is my jam. I like talking about it. I think that education is the front lines of the culture war right now, and education's probably at the very, very tippy top of God's agenda when it comes to impacting the hearts and minds of a new generation. And we've got kids getting ready right now to go to college for the first time, and a lot of parents who are nervous about it. It can be a rough, sort of bumpy transition, and this is something you care about quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you're passionate about.
Well, you're speaking my language, because this is what I do for a living, is help families and students. And I started many years ago in student life as a resident director. And the moment I started working with college students, I thought, there's no other population I ever want to work with. And then I became the director of this brand new department that was being created, and we called it The Cove. So it's an academic enrichment center for our university. And I love going into work every single day and working with students and their parents too.
Yeah. And so what do you do? I mean, what does the Cove do? So you go to work and you work with kids. I'm trying to imagine, Kim, give me like a day in the life of.
Yeah, great question. So we help all students, whether they're dual enrollment or they're students in the doctorate program. So we do courses and programs and services. So our number one service, I just did the numbers the other day. We have 101 peer tutors, and they did 3,800 hours of one-to-one tutoring just this past academic year.
Okay.
So that's one of our largest services, but we do disability services. We do one-on-one consultations. So it's a variety of services under the umbrella of what we call the Cove.
I love that. I think it's difficult, for parents who are getting ready to send their kids off to college, even if that college is a good Christian school. I know you happen to work for Cedarville University, which everyone who listens to the show knows Heidi St. John is a super fan of. And they're making a real difference at Cedarville. There are very few colleges that I think are absolutely committed to making sure that the rising generation is equipped to go out into the world and impact it with the gospel. So they're learning about the world from a biblical perspective, which is exactly what we want to be doing. But when kids go off to college for the first time, I remember when I was a college freshman, I mean, it was a while ago, to be fair.
Me too.
It was a while ago. But I was nervous about it. I went to Multnomah School of the Bible back in the day. And when you get off, it's bumpy, right? You leave home and all of a sudden, it feels like the training wheels, or your mom and dad are like, well, see you later, bye. And this kid's like, whoa, how do I ride this thing? And it can be really challenging. So what are some of the common academic challenges that students face when they start college for the first time? Because I'm anticipating, there are lots of people listening to this. Maybe they're students themselves, or maybe they're parents who have a student who's a sophomore in high school right now, or a junior or a senior. So they can see the finish line from here and they know, okay, my child, parents, listen to me. We don't send our kids to college for fun, right? So you got to know why you're sending your kid. Your child needs to know why they're going. But you've determined this. You understand what you're doing. You're going, okay, my child is college bound. Now we're taking a different course with our life. What are some of the common academic challenges that you see students facing?
It's a great question, because we see these students come in as freshmen and we watch this incredible transformation to the point where they take their diploma and walk across the stage, and watching that change, I mean, it gives me chills just to think about it. But as we know, in any major transition in life, there are challenges.
Yes.
And the common ones these are just ones that I was kind of been thinking of. One is that they need to learn that balance between academic life and their life outside of the classroom, and making sure they get everything accomplished that they need to, and also have a life outside of the classroom.
You know what? This is a really good reason for parents. When your kids are, juniors and seniors in high school, start giving them some responsibility so that you say, you know what? I'm gonna pull back a little bit so that you can fail at home.
I absolutely love that. My parents actually, my junior year of high school, sat me down and say, Kim, we're giving you the next 2 years to make every decision on your own. If you make some terrible decision, we're going to jump in, obviously. But that was
we're like greatest, a net. We're a safety net for you.
Right. It was a great thing. The other thing that happens a lot is that students don't realize that how they're studying in high school it's very different at the college level.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
They go from memorizing into like critical thinking. And, sometimes in high school, you could study the night before for a test and maybe read the book. And when you try that at the college level, it's not going to work.
It doesn't fly.
And we see that a lot. And then what you were just talking about, this whole independence thing, that first year is really about trying to figure out who they are, what their major is, who their friends are.
How late can I stay up and get away with it?
Yes. Wow. You're good.
I mean, well, I learned the freshman 15 when I was a freshman. I got the freshman 15 down pretty good.
That's funny.
I learned that you can't live on salted mochas. I learned that. Yeah.
That's part of it too, is learning how to manage all parts of your life holistically. And that's what I love about the Cove too. We don't just say, hey, do X, Y, and Z and study better. We treat the whole student in every part.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. All right. So you've been at this for a while. What are some of your best tips for college students and their families? Because really it's a family. I think that's really important too. When a young adult leaves the home, the family is impacted, the entire family. What are some sort of tried and true best practices for students and families getting ready to make that transition?
Yeah. So I go to the parents first. I started at Cedarville before I had children. And what I began to do is I began to watch the parents. I watched the parents who were, the way they were talking to their students and how that played out. And thinking, okay, I don't want to be that type of parent.
Yeah.
But what was so powerful and amazing was to watch these parents that were healthy and strong and watching and how they interacted and the transformation that happened. I thought, I want to embed that into my own philosophy of how I parent. And one of the biggest things, and we've already touched on it, is these parents were giving their students permission to be independent. So it's allowing them to be free to do the things that they need to do, make the phone calls that they need to make, and make the appointments. And instead of, like, I had one parent call me and say, she said, I've been waking up my child. All his entire education, all the way through senior year. Would I make sure that he got up in the morning? And
no.
And she wasn't joking. And I said, No, we don't do that. If students come, they have to be able to self-manage and get themselves out of bed.
I'm trying to imagine your face on the other end of the line. Like, yeah, no, we don't do that.
Oh, I had to be
we don't
so
actually
careful.
have a wake up service.
Right. But that's part of it is even now preparing your student for independence. So when they get to this place, they don't crash and burn.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty. If you can, do that. The other thing is, like, even this summer, if you have students coming in the fall, are there some things that, and these are kind of practical, that maybe they could learn so they don't have to do that transition in the fall? So like laundry. Do they know how to do laundry? So if they don't, teach them, make them do it this summer, then they don't have to figure that out when they get here. And then even things like, do they know how to do a budget? Have you talked to them about that and kind of give them some practice during the summer? Even just tangible things like that help them. So when they come in the fall, it's a little bit easier of a transition for them. But for students, that's a harder one because, they're so excited.
Yeah.
And I love that energy. I think there's just something amazing being around that type of energy. But I would say begin to think about what your college mindset is going to be.
That's good.
So what do you want to accomplish? What are some of the goals that you have? Do you want to study abroad? Do you want to serve on a ministry team? What kind of grades do you want to get? Kind of being proactive in thinking about the experience of ahead of time instead of deciding when you're in the throes of it. I just think that's a healthier thing. And then the last thing I think is know what resources you have, especially like organizations and ministries. I see some students, they're just doing academics and they're not getting involved in an organization. Like my son got involved early on with the men's service organization, end up being the president of that organization. And I tell you, the things he learned about leadership and that community and the advisors, it was just as important as what he learned in the classroom. So be thinking, what do you want to get involved in? So be, proactive thinking about those things.
Well, how do you know? Yeah, but how do you know? Like, where would you tell your student, here's where you look for campus resources? A student who's, brand new to the college experience. I think this is really true of homeschool families. And I'm thinking of the homeschool mom right now. Listen up, you guys. I'm talking to you. I'm thinking of the homeschool mom right now who is waking up her junior in high school. We had a little thing happen with our daughter, our youngest daughter, this last year. And I'm telling you what, I would go in there and wake her up. I mean, she's in 8th grade. I'd go in and wake her up. And then I'd be like, hey, Taylor, we're going to leave. We got to go, blah, 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 in 25 minutes or whatever. I'd go in there and she's still not awake. Like she had to wake her up, then she'd go back to sleep. Then I go out and wake her up and go back. So finally, my husband and I at dinner time, we sat her down and said, okay, here's the deal. You need to set your own alarm. So we bought you one. So here's an alarm that we bought for you. And here's how to use it. And you need to get yourself out of bed in time to leave by 8 a.m. And if you can't be ready to go by 8 a.m., you're going to stay home. We're going to leave you.
My goodness. You're fabulous.
Do you know how many times we had to leave her? Twice.
What? Oh, twice. Well, that's not bad.
Twice. Yeah. And then she got the hang of it. All of a sudden, it was just like, Mom, what time are you leaving in the morning? That became the question. What time are we leaving in the morning? And so many of these, I was reading an article in Psychology Today the other day because I was on an airplane and I had nothing else to do. I actually hate that magazine. Don't recommend it. 0 out of 10 stars. But there was an article that caught my attention. And it was sort of along these lines of how you sort of let your children learn to be independent while they're still at home. Yes. And there was so much discussion around what a child can and cannot do. And I'm just like, listen, guys, raise the bar. And I think for homeschool parents who are just so used to doing it, we don't see it as crippling our kids to be adults. We see this as, hey, we're loving you, we're helping you, we're in this thing together. But there really does come a time when you need to start saying, hey, you got to do this for yourself. Like the very first time that my kids make their own doctor's appointments, Kim, I should text this to you. There was the funniest thing on Instagram the other day, and I sent it to my 20-year-old daughter. I was like, girlfriend, this is you and me. It totally is. Like, you have a credit card dispute. And she's like, Mom, this didn't happen to me. I'm like, well, you need to call the number on the back of your debit card. What? You need to call the number on the back of your debit card. I can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, I'll help you. So I'm coaching you, right? So 1-800. So I'm across the table from her. They're like, this is Barclays, how can I help you? And she's like, I was like, say her name. I'm on this, say her name. Finally, she's like, this is, my child. I'm not going to say her name, embarrass her. This is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
so funny.
and the lady was like, okay, what's your problem? And so this back and forth between me and my daughter, and she gets like, I don't know, 5 minutes into it. Finally, I'm like, this is Heidi St. John. I'm so-and-so's mom. And we're calling because I'm looking at her like, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. But I was just like, you know what? It is kind of bumpy. Like the first time they're like, I have, when my kids are 18, we transfer their insurance. So they stay on my policy. So they get the discount, but the bill comes straight to them. And I don't know if parents know that you can do that. When your child turns 18, you can actually call State Farm. We're with State Farm. Call whoever you want. Call State Farm. And I just say, hey, this is Heidi St. John. I'd like my child so-and-so to get their own bill from now on. And there's something very jarring. I take them off my cell phone plan. People are like, that's not very nice. It's good for them.
It is.
It's good. It's good for them. Don't cripple your kid as they're trying to become an adult. Teach them how to be one. Okay, sorry, Ken. Carry on.
No,
that was my little rant.
I'm completely right there with you, because we are seeing those students come to college who haven't had any training of independence, and they crash and burn.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to pull them out of that. So I would say our number one student in the Cove is the A student, B student from high school who really hasn't developed that skill set yet. And some get it pretty quickly, Yeah. They get it. But other ones, sometimes it causes them to just go down this path that's really difficult to come back from. But what you're asking is, where do you find those resources? I think a couple of places that what I would do is, one, a lot of students, if they're going to the fall, are going in the fall to college, are working with an admissions counselor. That's their main line.
This is your BFF. Yeah, I agree. So hang out with that.
That's a great person to talk to. Also, if you're local, or if you're still thinking about a college or university, go to the campus and take the tours, and they'll point that out to you. But the best thing, I think, is just going to the website and pulling up, putting academic support services, student success, disability services, counseling services, and see what they have. Because families, I've seen this change in the past 10 years. They're really shopping for the best university for their student. They want to know what is available. So they come and ask us what we provide, because they're comparing us to other universities.
Yeah.
Which, it's smart. You're spending a lot of money. You want to get the most bang for your buck.
Absolutely true. And parents, you're going to get the most bang for your buck if you've already prepared your child ahead of time. I just can't stress it enough, because we've seen the same thing. Stop doing your 16-year-old kids' laundry. They can do their own, right? Start teaching your kid how to make simple meals at home, and it really will come back to bless them as they, and there have been things like my kids have come back, to me and said, Mom, you didn't teach me blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, hey, I missed that one. Sorry. I didn't know either. I figured it out on my own. And look at you. You're figuring it out on your own. They will figure it out, but there's things we can do, kind of push them in the right direction. Talk to me a little bit about the transition actually away from home, because the feeling, the homesick thing is real. I think, and it's not just homesick on the part of the student. It is the homesickness on the part of the mother, especially the homeschool moms, right? That you feel that missing piece in your family, and it can be tough to navigate. What kind of tips do you have for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say to the students that this is normal. It's normal to feel homesick. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. We call it syllabus shock the first week, when they get their syllabus and then realize everything that needs to be accomplished. But normalizing is important. Talking about it is important. This generation is absolutely amazing in their ability to discuss and talk about things that they're struggling with. It's great.
Well, because we don't care what we vomit onto the internet anymore. Let's be honest. No one cares.
But what's great, it allows someone like me who's trying to help navigate some of this. I know where
you're getting more puzzle pieces. You're not having to pull it so hard out of them. Yeah.
Right. But I also say, try and find a place where you can serve. So,
so good.
You're getting out of your own head and you're ministering to other people. It gets the focus off of yourself. And the other thing is, and being a resident director for several years, I believe this strongly, make sure your room is a comfortable place to come home to, not piles of clothes and desk full of things and everything awry. That's your living space, those four walls. So if you make that a comfortable, engaging place, I think that's great. But the biggest thing, and I think about my own life, those struggles in college were the very things that brought me closer to God. I was struggling through, as all college kids do, like, who is God in your life and making it your own faith. It's those tough moments that allow you to think about allowing the Holy Spirit to comfort you and bring scripture to mind and give direction and guidance. I wouldn't take those moments away for anything in my own life, and for students too, because you might not see it in that one moment, that one conversation.
So true.
But when you add all those 4 years up and you see that transformation, it's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I think you tell your parents, look, hey, your kid's going to be okay. I think this is hard on, it was hard. I remember, very, very clearly when my daughter got married, and I was just like, because, they leave a hole in your home, and we've spent our whole lives, feathering the nest and shaping, just doing everything just right so that we are raising these children in a good environment. But the reality is they're not little birds in your little tiny nest. They're arrows that hopefully you've been sharpening for war. And what your job is to do now is to pull back on that arrow, load them into the bow and let them fly. And I'll tell you, parents, when you let your children know that you trust what God is doing in their life, that you're excited to see what's ahead of them, that you're not home, crying your eyes out every night and, drinking a glass of wine just to numb how sad you are. They don't need that from you. They need to know that you trust what God's doing in their life. Let them know that you trust the living God to finish in the life of your child what he started in them through you.
Oh my goodness, that's absolutely amazing. You're right, because they don't need you calling and crying and texting,
don't do that.
I miss you. And
no.
Because that makes it difficult on the student to be able to do what they need to do. You are absolutely right on target.
Yeah. And I wonder too, I was listening to a friend of mine speaking on a different issue, but she was talking about, the role of an adult is to protect the heart and mind of a child. And the same thing is true as our children get older. We don't want to dump our emotional garbage on our kids. We really do not. And this is especially one of those times when you don't want to do that. Yes, we need to have sometimes difficult conversations with children if they're sinning, absolutely. But when you're home, you don't want to be calling your kid up at college just being, I miss you. I just don't, you guys aren't dating. Okay. This is your arrow that you launched, and now they're going to go out into the world and do something incredible. And parents, I think, lean into your other mama bears and other dads who have gone through this, because that support system for parents, because I'm not denying that that is a reality and it is hard.
Right.
But we don't want to put the burden on our kids.
Right. And there's also this piece of, and I've seen this happen over the years, there are times when parents need to step in when their child is saying, death sounds better than life to me.
Oh, boy.
I'm thinking about, taking these pills. You hang up and you call 911 and you contact the school. So there's this line of having to be careful, because sometimes parents do need to step in to help their student. But for the most part, let them enjoy life.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be there's the helicopter parents. And what did they say in psychology today? Again, 0 out of 10 stars. Lawnmower parents. Right.
Oh, lawnmowers.
The
you know what I call
lawnmower.
them?
What?
I call them agents. They're being agents for their, they're calling about their schedule. They're calling about their documents. They're doing all the calling for, like, on behalf of the student.
Again.
Agent, yeah.
Oh, hey, yeah. You don't do that. No. Never.
Let them go. Let them be.
Never. Yeah. Let them go. Let them be. Pray for them. Let them know you're praying for them. So good. Let's talk about time management for just a couple of minutes. before we wrap this up, because this is one of the things that's really important. We talked about it kind of at the beginning of the show today. Stop getting your 18-year-old, man child out of bed in the morning. Let them start running their own life. But let's talk about managing time effectively, like in between classes. Your kids are, these young people are going, oh my word, my mom's not telling me that I have to study right now. So I get to choose. Do I study? Do I go to Dairy Queen for my 300th Sunday this week? What do I do? What are some of the best tips that you can give young people or parents to help remember to give to their young adult to manage their time effectively?
The very first thing that comes to mind is that students really need to figure out who they are and own that. So what are your learning styles? Once you know your learning styles, that's going to help you do other parts of
homeschool moms are ahead of the curve on this one. I got to say.
Oh, that's good.
I give them 8 out of 10 stars on this one. 8 out of 10.
The other thing is really figure out, again, what works for you in the area of a planner. So there are a lot of students that come and they haven't used a planner. So I say, is it a hard copy? Is it online? I had one girl who really wasn't using a planner and really needed to, but she was super creative. I said, okay, let's figure out something that works for you. That's fun and artsy. And she came up with this idea above her desk, these Post-it notes that, about 4x4, and made this beautiful calendar above her desk. And she was engaged. So I think that's part of it, is figuring out who you are. And then I say always try different things. Study for 50 minutes, take a break for 10 minutes. Does that work for you? Or do you get distracted and, that doesn't...
Now you can't get back into it. Yeah.
And then finding a place on campus that works for you. Some students really try and study and, do all their stuff or manage their life in their room, which is fine to a level. But if you get pulled away by, scrolling or gaming or whatever, the room can be a big distraction.
Boy, yeah.
So really block those times. I go to the library in the afternoons from 3 to 5, so I can knock that out before supper. So really think about what are those time blocks that really work for you. But it is on the student to figure that out. And sometimes it's a little bumpy, but once you get it and you start figuring out who you are, how you were designed, it just makes it a whole lot easier every semester that proceeds after that. But and the first semester can be tough.
Boy, and I always love to tell, my kids, my adult kids especially, you're going to be changing how things work for you your entire life. So what worked for me last year, my schedule at work changed, or the podcast schedule changed. And so you have to learn to adapt. And so it's okay if it worked last year, but it's not working this year, that's all right. Try to find something different. Just because it worked once and now you can't figure out how to make it work again doesn't mean that what you did was wrong. It just means that your life is changing and we need to learn to adapt.
Right. And part of that is taking care of themselves. If you're managing your time well, you're getting a good night's sleep.
Come on.
And we know sleep is such an issue for college students.
And for mothers.
And yes, making sure you're taking care of yourself is huge, because that's going to give you the physical energy, the emotional energy, cognitive energy to be able to do the things that you're there to do.
Yeah, just another reason, Kim, I think it goes back to what we kind of started out by saying, parents, when your kids are still at home, if they're in, high school, let them figure this out for themselves. Your kid wants to stay up till 2 a.m, and watch, Lord of the Rings. Fine. But we're still leaving the house at 7:30. So if you want to stay up till 2 a.m, that's fine. But we're leaving the house at 2 a.m. And, my kids know it's 9 o'clock at night. Heidi St. John gonna be wheels up. Right. I'm going to bed. I got to go to bed because I know I have to be at work. I have to come into the studio. I've got things to do. This is good for your kids to know. And I think the letting go is really hard. What are a couple, we're going to wrap this up, but what are some final pieces of advice that you would give incoming students and parents as they adjust to this new season of life? It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it is. The one thing I always come back to is just enjoy these moments. Enjoy this summer. Relish those conversations. Don't get caught up in the minutia of all the details of life and, your house being perfect and being super busy. it's going to change. Your life is going to change, and you want to relish, you want to take in all of those moments. So whether they're going to college in the fall or maybe the next year or two, make sure that you're really digging into that relationship and enjoying those. Go to coffee, go on vacation, do things with them. Don't let the busyness of your life distract you from those beautiful relationships, because what happens is once they get into college, and this surprised me beautifully, is that my kids, they became friends. Like after they graduated from college, it's like our relationship changed to this beautiful thing I think it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm still their mom, but it's, yeah.
But now they're like
every minute of it.
They're your favorite people. And I think, for as much as we look at that new season of life, I always tell, moms, there's a lot of emphasis, I think, on social media, particularly for young moms and young dads, like you only have your child for 18 years and it just goes by so fast. And I'm like, my daughter's 32 and I still have her, right? They're not going out of your life. They're just changing into a different relationship in your life. And I absolutely love, 6 of my 7 are adults now, and I love spending time with those kids. And I love watching their relationships that they have with each other. I love as they're having babies of their own now, and they're planning their own barbecues and doing their own thing. And I get invited over, and I love that. And so there's new seasons coming, new joy is coming, new opportunities are coming. Yes. So look forward with anticipation. I think there was a reason why the Apostle Paul said, I'm forgetting what's behind, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to press onward toward the goal, heavenward to Christ Jesus, because you guys, we're all moving in the same direction, right? And we want to enjoy every single minute that God gives us with our kids. So I love this, Kim. This has been fantastic conversation.
I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much. I have
loved it so much. You are at Cedarville University. If people want to find out more about Cedarville, how would they do that?
Just email me, Ahlgrim@Cedarville.edu, or just go to the Cedarville University webpage, type in The Cove, and it'll be the first webpage that pops up, and you can contact me there.
I love that. Kim Ahlgrim, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's just been a delight.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, you guys, I hope that's been encouraging for you. I know a lot of you entering this season of life. Moms, get your kids an alarm clock, full stop. You do not have to pull your 16-year-old kid out of bed in the morning. You're welcome. We love you guys. Have a great day. Love your people well. And I will see you right back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.